Hey friends, welcome back to the library or welcome to the library. I have with me today author D.W. Brooks. Yay. Round of applause. I'm super excited to be talking to you. Tell us a little bit about how you got started writing and kind of your journey throughout.
That is a story. I actually decided I wanted to be a writer when I was 8 years old. And my cousins and I were all about 8 and 9. I especially was a big reader. I read lots of Nancy Drew and Trixie Belden. And we decided that we wanted to write our own version of that with characters that look like us. So
Mhm.
we're eight. We decided that we would sit down and create this entire neighborhood with all these friends and kids, and they had folks that they didn't like, folks that they did, and they were going around, having adventures, solving little petty crimes and things like that. We even, as kids, we didn't know what it was, but we actually had a document, just a piece of paper, but we sat down and wrote out, we described each person and who their friends were, who they did and didn't like, basically made little family trees and things like that.
Yeah.
So basically a story Bible. We didn't know that's what it
Mhm.
was, but that's what we created. And I don't know how familiar you are with dot matrix computer paper. Both of my
Mm.
parents worked in computers, so it's like this long paper. You could attach it to the dot matrix printer. They had lots of that paper, so I would fold it over, staple it up, and we start writing. So it would look like a book because we didn't really understand what publishing a book meant. We just thought if we stapled it up and wrote in it, we were writing books. But we didn't actually understand what plotting a book meant. So we would start
Mm.
writing, end up with half of us, half a story, didn't have any idea to how to complete the story. We had some pictures drawn in it because one of my cousins is an artist, so she would illustrate it. They were very cute, but they weren't complete. So after a while, we had several half completed stories, and as 8 year olds do, we kind of wandered on to do something else. And my parents put them in the attic, and I moved on to and decided I wanted to be a physician and went on that way. Never, I mean, I think about it every so often, but I didn't really make any effort to write again. And then in the 2010s, I have a genetic kidney condition called polycystic kidneys. So my kidneys started to fail, and I was waiting for a transplant. And I decided that if I'm not going to be doing anything but sitting either on a machine or in my bed, I might as well do something that I wanted to do for a long time. So I started to write, and that's how I started writing Homecoming Chaos, which was my first novel. So it was a long, circuitous
Yeah.
journey, but I ended up back where I started out as a kid. So, um,
That is so neat. I love that. That is like,
yeah, think about this though. My parents have sold that house
mm,
that I grew up in. So I knew my mother had put those things we had written in the attic. So before we sold the house, I actually went up there to try to find them. And my mother said, she was like, I don't know where that stuff is. It's been years. And she had the nerve to tell me that the squirrels ate it. I said, no, I think you threw it away, but because it was, it's just paper. But she says
yeah.
that the squirrels threw it away. That was her final answer. So so I never could find it again because I was curious to see, what we actually had done as kids, and see
Yeah.
how it compared now, but it's gone. So kind of bummed about that.
Yeah, but I think that's really neat. Like the way intrinsically you knew as kids, like this is probably what we'll end up doing. Just
Yeah,
and the creativity. Can you imagine the childlike creativity you would have found in those stories? Just
yeah. Because I remember because we would act out some of the, before we write it down, we say, all right, well, he should do this, and no, no. I mean, it's just three of us, and we're just. It was it was fun. I mean, it was a lot of fun. If it had happened now, we would have videos and things of it. I mean, I'm older than you are, so there aren't that many videos. There may be pictures of
Yeah.
us, but not a lot of videos, and that part is a little disappointing as well.
Yeah. I actually just saw a post not too long ago that was like the generation of kids who were born between like the late 90s and the early 2000s were the last ones to have their childhood pictures taken not on a cell phone.
Yeah, yeah,
And I was like, I can remember the Polaroid cameras and all. They're like, nobody ever, if I asked my younger siblings, they'd been like, what are you talking about? But I'm like, all right, I guess
yeah.
I'm just going to go. I'm going to go now.
Yeah,
I
it's
watched it
totally
all
different.
change, but
Yeah, no, I am actually a Generation Xer. I'm Generation X, and I have lots of pictures of my childhood, but
mm,
they're nowhere near as many pictures as we do now because you
oh,
had
yeah.
to count how many pictures you could because the film only had 24 exposures or what have you. So they weren't taking like cartoon pictures of every move that you made. Like now, you just click,
Mm-hmm.
click, 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 click. It's no big deal because you can take as many pictures as you have space on your phone. But then it was like, okay, I can only take 24 because that's how many are on this roll of film. And
Yep.
so I don't have everything. I do have a lot of pictures. My parents took a lot of pictures, but nowhere near what we have now. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
no, it's so easy for someone to have. I mean, in 6 months, you have over 1,000 of pictures just of random things.
Yeah, you see something else like, and even
Yeah.
things that you don't intend to take pictures of because your phone takes them for you. You look at it and say,
Or
"What?"
a little kid runs off with your phone and you've got a bunch of pictures of somebody's forehead or toes or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, or running or something. You're just like, what is this? Yeah, my daughter does that. She'll take it. And she's trying to look for something on my phone, and then I'll see pictures of her going. It's like, why is
Bunch
that
of
on
random
my phone? Stop it.
things. Do you feel like those childhood experiences with attempting to write your stories had any effect on the genre that you chose to write?
No, actually, well, because no, because I mean, Trixie Belle and Nancy Drew are all mysteries.
Mm-hmm,
And,
mm-hmm,
you know, until now, that was my mystery, suspense thrillers. That was my thing. That was all I would read. I mean, of course,
mm-hmm.
you throw in a few Harlequin romances and this and that, a few romances here and there. But if the world was in danger, I'm reading it, stuff like that. And, uh, now that my Homecoming cast actually is a romantic suspense, I put in a a romantic story in with the mystery, and I don't think I don't think that's exact. I think we were just writing straight mysteries. There were boyfriend and girlfriends in our stories, but yeah, I don't think the romance was what we were. We weren't. I mean, we were 8. We weren't really trying to write romantic stories, but um, and I don't think I originally planned for Homecoming Chaos to be romantic suspense. I think it was just going to be a mystery, and I started looking at my lead character, and then I looked at the detective and said, well, yeah, that could work. All right, that could work. And add a little bit of extra something to the story. And actually, I've taken their fledgling relationship from that, and that's where the series is going, kind of following them. It's almost like I'm writing a romance in pieces. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
Dating Chaos, the book I published, the novella I published last month, is basically about their first 2 dates and a
Okay.
whole bunch of other stuff that happens
Yeah.
around them. But that's kind of, I think that's where that one's going. It's just kind of slices of their life. He's a detective, she's a mystery magnet. There's always going to be some kind of drama or something going on in their lives. So I don't know exactly how far I'm going to carry it. I mean, I think my plan was to write several. I mean, I think I was going to write 6 or 7 stories in their life, kind of ending with them getting married at some point. Um, and then, I've had some reviewers who are saying, I'd like to know something about some of the other people in there. So I do have one work in progress about her brother. Um, so he's the main character. I mean, I mentioned all the other people, but he's the main character. It's mainly his life. So we'll see how that goes. How far
Yeah.
it actually goes.
Have you ever considered writing outside of that genre? Like, has there been any stories that have really just kind of like pulled you and been like, maybe I could write, a retelling or this fantasy world that I thought about, or
Probably never be fan. I can watch fantasy on television. I mean, I can watch movies. I can do that.
mm-hmm.
I cannot. I have a hard time reading it because
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I need to see it. I can look on the TV and say, all right, I get what they're trying to do, and even then, I'm like, okay, why is this happening to my husband? Like, why is this happening? I don't understand what's going on there. But ironic that you asked that. I have I have probably 4 or 5 work in progress is sitting on my computer. One is the next one in the Chaos family, but the one I've actually been working on more in the past 2 weeks is a romance. Plain romance, no suspense, no mystery, just the romance. And I'm actually trying to write it in first person dual point of view, which is not what I typically write in third person omni because I like knowing what everybody's thinking. I like being able to say what everybody's thinking because I think for mysteries that's you kind of have to be able to there you have to be able to know things that
Yeah.
the lead character, the detective, doesn't know.
Yeah,
um,
I agree.
yeah, so and since that's mostly what I've read, that's what I write in. But I'm trying to write a first person dual point of view, and it is a challenge. However, I had to ask some other romance authors, I mean, who write mostly romance. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I said, look, I'm writing this first person, but there are some things going on in the story that they should not know that I need to talk about. How do I do that?
Yeah.
So they gave me a couple of suggestions, like, you can use text messages or something. I have to figure out how to work that, but there's some things that are kind of key to the story that they don't know that they'll find out later, but
Mm-hmm.
kind of sets up some things that happen between them in the future. And otherwise, it would be like, well, why is this happening? Well, because
Yeah.
somebody's making it happen who's not them. So I have to, but I mean, so far it's fun. And right now I'm just kind of just spilling all their backstory on the paper. It's a second chance romance, so I'm just spilling all of their backstory on paper. I'm going to have to go back and figure out how to actually organize it. It's if I was just writing a straight mystery, it would be easier.
So you said you had to go back and reorganize it. So I'm going to ask this. It may be different for each one, but whenever you're writing, is it like you have a set line and like you follow your line, or is it like I'm getting pieces of the story as I go and the characters just kind of run off and then I have to go back after I have most of it and start putting it where it belongs?
It's probably a combination of both. I am a
Mm-hmm.
pantser. What is the other one?
Plotter.
Plots. Well, I'm not really a plotter. What I end up
Mm-hmm.
doing is I have the idea of the story in my head of what I'd like the endpoint to be. And I try to write kind of a really general outline of, a few plot points on what things that I would definitely like to hit to get there. And when I start actually writing it, it's kind of whatever the characters or they're like, no, I don't want to do that. So you can't write that because it just doesn't feel right for the character that you've been
Mhm.
putting on the page. And also, I start thinking of things, I'm in the bathtub or in my car, and I was like, oh, that's how I make that make sense. Okay, all right. And go back and add that in, or just jot down a note saying, well, this is why
Mhm.
he said that, or this is why they did this, and then have to go back and kind of fix it. I have a developmental editor that I've worked with on all three books. Um, and she goes in and is like, ah, no, don't do that. Or, I mean, because even for Homecoming Chaos, she ended up chopping out some of it, which ended up turning into the prequel. She was like, that
Mm.
doesn't need to be here. You can put that in a separate story. So
Hey, make another story.
yeah, well, it's the prequel kind of gives the baseline for my lead character, just kind of
Hmm.
how she ended up. Because at the beginning of Homecoming Chaos, she's coming home after 4 years, and I do Chaos. I explained why she left. so,
Okay.
um, I mean, I obviously you mention it in the novel, but I give
Hmm.
the full. Is it 48 or 60 hours before she actually left town? I kind of go through all the
The
things
rundown.
yeah, of why she
Yeah.
left, and then she comes back, and so it's I would love to be able to sit and plot. I mean, plot out each scene by scene, but it never has worked that way for me.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, we didn't plot anything out. I'm better at actually finishing it now, but it is like, okay, I run out of things to say. I don't know what to do with this person, and I don't know how to solve this mystery. But I mean,
Hmm.
I'm better at that now. But it was a mess when we were 8. It was always we don't know how to solve it, so write another one. Let's start another book. So that's why we had a buddy.
I feel like that's fitting for childhood imagination and like attention span too. It's just like, it's okay.
Yeah, I'll just write it. I'll just start again, write another one. It'll be fun. So yeah,
Which I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that as an adult. Sometimes you need to clean a fresh slate and you can
yeah.
come back to it later. That absolutely is okay. Do you feel like okay, so I wanted to just openly ask, like, where do you get your inspiration from? But I also feel like it may come from day to day things, like questions you may have as you move through your daily life.
Um,
Yes or no?
no, I mean there are I mean there's probably so much just going around in my head. I'm not even sure I have the time to actually write every story that's dancing around in
Yeah.
my head. I don't think I have enough time left on this timeline to actually write everything that I would like to write, because I pieces from different TV shows, pieces from things I've read. I ID television. So
Mm-hmm.
my husband looks at me saying, I worry. I'm glad you're writing now, because I always worried because you're watching Snapped, and it's like, why are you watching that? Is there a mission? Is there a message to me? so, uh, no. So, there's so many different places you can get inspiration. Um,
Mm-hmm.
things that people say that remind you of somebody that you knew in the past, something that they said, and you're like, I could, that would fit well in this. I mean, you're not
Mm-hmm.
copying them, but they inspired you to kind of take what they said or did and stick it into a story. It looks totally different, but it adds a slightly different twist.
Yeah.
Just kind of putting a whole bunch of things together to make a newer story, because there's nothing completely new under the sun, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you can put it together and then you have your own voice, so it's different. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, one thing that's always going to be there's two things that are always going to be in my stories: a tall female main character, because I'm tall. So
Yay.
yeah, I always feel bad because, in romances, I mean, people do write tall female characters,
Mm.
but most of them aren't, because that's kind of how, the woman's always shorter than the guy. And,
Yeah,
there's,
they want 5'4" or 5'2" or 5 foot. They don't want anybody like 5'7" and up. They just
yeah,
don't.
yeah, you can't, they can't pick her up in the story and blah, blah, blah. So all of my, um, all of my female lead characters are going to be tall. And the other thing is that they're probably going to be fairly sarcastic. It's just kind of how they roll. So
If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen,
there you
okay?
go. There you go. There you go. I mean, I was getting ready this morning and I was basically going through um, conversations in my head for the romance, kind of the breakup conversation. And I was just
Hmm.
like, I need to start just recording it because it's flying through your head and you're just like, I can't write it right now because I'm doing something else. I
Yeah.
just need to have a recorder on all the time and just say it so I can go back and put it because I usually can remember it or remember the gist of it, but one day that's not going to happen. I'm going to be really mad. Like, this is a good conversation. I can't remember what they were saying in my head.
So do you feel like your inspiration for characters is the same? Like obviously we know you said your female main characters are always going to be tall and a little sarcastic. Do you feel like you still piece together your other characters, your male main character, your side characters from others? Obviously there are going to be pieces of you in them as well because you're writing the story, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the female lead character in the Chaos series is me. I mean, she's based on me, except she has a whole lot more drama than I ever had. Oh my gosh. Her life is just, as somebody said in a review, how much can one person take? So she could take a lot. I'm going to give her a break in next book.
mm-hmm.
It's not going to be quite as, quite as harrowing as it's been so far. But, I mean, my husband likes to remind me that my female lead character in that series is my mother, except a lot worse. And the relationship has uh, some similarities to my relationship I had with my mother, except,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we actually got along, but there are some similarities to what I wrote. And, I, it's, I'm sure there are people that I know who are the other side characters, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not like they came to mind like, I want her sister to be just like such and such. It's kind
Yeah.
of, okay, this is what the lead character is like. This is what the mother's like. If if these things that happen to them and the little sister is there, what would she be like based on what kind of things were going on in the house? And that's kind of how I put her pieces together or the brothers' pieces together, just kind of what I would expect the other people to be like based on what would have been happening in the house when they were growing up. And
Mm-hmm.
so far, it seems to actually fit. And then I actually went, um, a friend of mine actually had an idea to do a social media post talking about the horoscopes of her characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I, jumped on the trend and made the horoscopes of my characters. And I was like, okay, if I want his birthday to be here, hey, this actually kind of fits what his horoscope says he would be like. All right. So it's so far it's kind of fitting, but it's fun. It's all of it's kind of fun because basically you can kind of make your characters do and say what you want, whether it makes sense, because you can always make a reason why they're acting out of character. Like, he was drunk or he was just really upset with what she said. So he did something that he typically wouldn't do, something like that. So that's kind of the fun of them being your characters. You can make them do what you want. And it,
Yeah.
you can come up with a rationale as to why. Like, okay, yes, he generally be calm and cool headed, and I made him be hot headed here because he was really, drunk or high or something.
He
So,
was just not himself.
yeah, basically, he wasn't himself. He did something stupid. Now he has to go back and figure it out. So, Yeah, it's that part is always fun.
I do like that you put a little bit more drama into it because, like, as much as I love the stories that are just really, they're happy go lucky and they got together, and the ones with the drama stick with you longer. They sit in your mind because you get angry or you get flustered or you get irritated and you're just like, why? Why did you go and do this? Also, cliffhangers,
You're gonna
they
be mad.
hurt my soul.
You're gonna be mad at me because Dating Chaos has a cliffhanger, and I didn't intend it. I was writing. I was trying to come to a nice little conclusion. It's a novella, trying to come to a nice little conclusion, and I'm writing, and is I could see it showing up on my page, like, oh my god, this is perfect. This is perfect. It's a cliffhanger. Oh my god! So I was so excited, and I actually did do arcs, and probably half of the reviewers are like, yeah, I can't believe you did that to me.
But now we know you're coming back. Now we
Yeah,
know you're coming back because you need answers and you're not
yeah.
going to forget about it. And then you're probably going to rope some of your friends into reading it too because you're going to be like, you'll never believe what happened in this book. There is this massive cliffhanger and you need to read it because I cannot be alone in this.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was just fun. It was fun. It was just like, I mean, people say, well, what's your last sentence? I said, it's just a one-word sentence, and it doesn't make sense by itself. But if you read the three sentences before it, you're like, oh no. So yeah, I didn't intend for it to be cliffhanger. So there it is. And I was going through my head about the next book behind it, and I'm afraid there's going to be a cliffhanger there as well. I'm sorry. Just heads up. Maybe no one will read it now because they're like, she's playing with us now.
Oh, that's funny. I just read an arc the other day and listen, okay, so I got the arc from Threads. All right. I signed up from the author's Threads page because they were talking about it and it's like dark academia, and I was just like enthralled by the description. I was like, signed me up, okay? She was like, well, you got to read the first one first. I'm like, no problem. I just bought it. It's cool. I'm reading it now. Sign me up for the arc. And she was like, all right. So I finished the first one, and it did, but it didn't end on a cliffhanger. Like, technically it was one, but it was like we wrapped up this with a little bow and she's not who she says she is, which we knew from the beginning. However, when you get into the second one, it's like I had no idea how many books were going to be in the series, first of all, because I just happened upon this author's Threads and had never heard of her before and was just immediately enthralled. Okay. So then I go into I'm on Discord, and that's where I've decided it ends up taking most of my time because other social medias are great, but Discord is just like one big amalgamation of people all over the country and all over the world. We're all just talking about books and some of the same books. And so I got on there and I was like, does anybody else know my pain? Like, I just finished this book and it ends on a massive cliffhanger because someone who was supposed to be the female main character's best friend was actually betraying her the entire time. And I was like, and these men, it's supposed to be a reverse harem. And I was in a panic mode. So I run to Discord and I'm like, somebody please tell me you understand what is happening here. And one of the authors that is in our Discord is like, oh, I'm actually best friends with the author who wrote this one. And I've been sending her my random thoughts. And I was like, okay, first of all, this is supposed to be a reverse harem. So 2 out of the 5 guys that are supposed to be enthralled with her are the only ones that are actually enthralled. And the third one, who is actually a twin of one of the ones who is enthralled, finally decided he was starting to have feelings and admitting them. And we got one very, very small scene of something that was supposed to be something and it ended up being nothing. And now I'm like, I'm going to cry.
I actually think I know who you're talking about too.
It's
He's a friend of mine. Go ahead. Yeah, when you said reverse harem, I said I know which one you're talking about. She's a friend of mine.
so Virgin Sacrifice, the
Yeah,
first one, was
yeah.
amazing, and I loved it so much. And I plowed through Lady Killer, and I got to the end, and I was just like, oh my god! So then I'm in the Discord, and in my Discord, I ended up getting a DM from Jay Chambers, and she was like, I am literally in her messages all the time. And I was like, do we know how many books this is going to be? Because this is like a massive slow burn, and I'm dying because that was an arc I just finished. So, like, it's not even published.
We need more. We need more. Yeah.
I was like, I need her to write faster.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand. I do. It's a small world. Oh my
She
god.
tells me how many books are going to be in this series according to LM. And she was like, I was like, wait, why are there that many? And she goes, I thought there should have been more. And I was like, are you trying to hurt me? How slow is this slow burn? Like, I am dying.
Oh, come on. You know, about
I
10,
am
15
here.
books, you can do it. You can do it.
15?
I'm just exaggerating. I have actually.
That was really X.
Yeah, I haven't even asked. Yeah, I was gonna say I never asked her how many she was putting in there.
But yeah, I was like so shocked somebody else in the Discord actually knew what I was talking about, and then to find out they were best friends with her, and I was like, I need you to pass along some information for me.
Just give me a hint on how many more are coming, and you need to let me know so I can read the arc as soon as it comes out, so I can not wait as long.
So like at this point, I'm about to be like stalking LM's page and be like, all right, how do I get onto your team? How do I become like your right hand? I need to know right now. What do I need to do? I will sell my soul. I will worship whoever I know. Like I will cut off a hand if you want.
No.
I mean, I don't plan on having kids, but if you want my firstborn.
She's got her own. She's wrestling with her own baby right now. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, like I said, I know a lot of people were like, we hate cliffhangers, but sometimes they just have to be there. Sometimes
No, because then you get into this spot and you're like, I need to do anything and everything I can to stay on top of when the next one's coming out, what the storyline looks like. I'm going to be trying to get as close as I can to the author because I want more information. Like, how can I get on your team? Like, can I get on your team? How many different places are you on social media? Like, what are you willing to share? Like, as much information as I can get. Because at this point, I'm a fiend.
Well, that's what she wants. That's why she calls you ghoulies.
I know.
Oh my God. See, this is perfect.
So like I have a love-hate relationship with cliffhangers because I know they're important and they can do a lot for building up suspense and for you guys as far as like getting people to come back for the next story.
Right.
So that you have that return reader, someone who's willing to purchase or go through KU or however you do it. Mm-hmm. But then it's also very detrimental to the story to leave you there because you're questioning.
Yeah.
And those questions, how much your mind will race and wander until you get to the next one. Those questions are important for like what part of the story you're in. This is the middle of the story, the very middle, the highest part of the climax. Before we start the downturn, if you were in school and you remember this massive arc of up and down and then up and then down and then up and you hit the highest climax, the little mountain storyline they make you do.
Right. Oh, you bringing back long, long, long ago memories. Oh my. I'm not even sure we did it quite like that. I mean, they spent their time making us diagram sentences. So,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, I, I, I mean, I actually had forgotten about that. It's just like, oh my God, little tree.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm that old. So, but yeah. So
Yeah.
that's I have a cliffhanger. Probably have another one coming. Then I have to start wrapping it up. I guess I don't want to have
Yeah.
a whole bunch of cliffhangers, but those two make sense.
We're going to have to say goodbye. Do you have any plans for after?
For
Yes,
after
I
what?
know.
Which part? After which thing?
After you get ready to wrap up this series and you have to say goodbye.
Oh, I probably will. I mean, write something else. I still want to write a straight. I keep saying straight, but that's it's just like every time I try to describe the romance, I keep saying it's a straight romance. It's not that it's a straight romance. It's just a romance, not a
Mm-hmm.
romantic suspense or a mystery thriller. It's a romance. So I would like to write a mystery that doesn't necessarily have any romantic implications or anything like that. Just, you know, maybe not quite the world being ready to end if they don't solve this, but something like that. That's on the agenda, but it keeps getting moved further back because, like I said, I have four work in progresses open. Three of them are in the chaos series, and then I have the romance. And I guess it depends on how the romance goes, whether I venture into another one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, they're also that's another thing. There will always be medical people in it because my
Yeah.
lead character in the cast, she's a doctor, as are the two lead characters in the romance. So there'll be medical people roaming around doing stupid things.
Well, though, that's fun, though. Like, I'm not a physician, but I have some training as an MA. Now, unfortunately, I let that go back because I decided to go elsewhere.
Yeah,
Um, However, I have some knowledge, so
yeah.
I have, and I had parents, grandparents that were physicians and nurses and EMTs for a long time. So it's just in
Mm-hmm.
the stories. While some are very tragic and heartbreaking, there are also a lot of really funny ones because sometimes you just don't quite until you day to day experience some of the pure idiocracy of the humankind.
Yeah, I mean, almost every person who's in the medical field have ridiculous stories, things that they've seen patients do, things that they've done. I mean, when I was in medical school and residency, there were plenty of dumb things that these really smart doctors did in the name of love. It's just like, really? You did what? So I, uh, I plan to, run with that a little bit. And
Yeah.
stupid things or stupid behaviors, manage to break your own relationship up because you're stubborn or hard headed. So I mean, just because they're doctors doesn't mean that they're always serious and smart and make the best decisions. They make
Mm-hmm.
decisions too. They go out and have one night stands and end up pregnant just like everyone else, even though you think that they don't, because you're like, well, they're doctors. They should know better.
Yeah, do you know how this works? But no.
No, they still do it. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay. They'll know better later. At the end, they'll just be like, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done that, but I was drinking or I got carried away, just like everyone else. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of fun to bring that up as well.
That's something that I talked about with my uncle because he's a civil engineer. So he's like extremely, extremely, extremely book smart.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty book smart myself.
Yeah.
I didn't really struggle in school. I felt like I just kind of graced by. I didn't have to study a whole lot, and
Yeah.
I made really good grades. I kept my GPA up high, and so he and I have a lot of conversations because he was in some of his advanced calculus classes in college as I was going into college.
Hmm.
And so, which is weird enough as is because his story is very like I had to stop school and then I went back to school after I was well into my 40s and like I have kids who are nearly in high school. Um, but he and I were talking, he was like, I had a conversation with your dad because my dad used to work at an oil and gas plant.
Hmm.
So he used to deal every day with engineers of some sort who
Right.
were the minds behind everything that was working. And the three of us were sitting there having this conversation, and my uncle was like, from our side, it just makes sense. Like in your brain, when you're looking at the computations and everything, like you're looking at the numbers, everything lines out and works. And then my dad's like, yeah, but the more, sometimes the more book smart you have and like the more things make sense in there, the common sense is gone because
Yeah.
application does not always apply and
Yeah.
equal your numbers in real life. And
Yeah.
so my uncle, as we were talking, he was just like I understand that because I've had years of experience in life
Mhm.
and things before I went directly into school. He was like, but there are some young bucks in my classes, they just don't understand that like life experience gets you more knowledge and it helps you remember that like just because the paper says it's supposed to be that way doesn't mean it's actually that way. Like things
Right.
don't always
Yeah.
work out like that. Like it just
Yeah.
it's supposed to work, but it doesn't.
Yeah. It's, smart people do dumb things, and, they may be quicker to figure out that that was dumb, or, they may be faster to look back on and go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
they do dumb stuff too. So, and, a lot of people are kind of like, why would she do that? She's a doctor. It's like, she's, there's a lot more she probably did that you just don't know
Well,
about.
yeah, and like when you're not when you do not have family members or have any sort of experience working in the medical field, you don't realize how much stress it really is.
Yeah.
And I didn't even fully like work, but I had plenty of family members and plenty of experience and training on right before I started to want to go in. And I had to explain to some of my friends, I'm like, your other friends who are nurses who had to go through COVID and all of this,
Hmm.
like it was stressful enough as is because on a day to day, someone else's family is putting the life of their loved one in your hand.
Right.
And
Right.
then you have to go home and worry about your family as well on top of your own health, and that
Yeah.
was stressful enough before we started that
Hmm.
because again somebody else is putting their trust into you taking care of their loved ones, and
Right.
then you add in global pandemic, and now like we're trying to get past it, but those strains are not gone. Like those things don't just disappear.
It's trauma. I mean, it was serious
And
trauma.
trauma,
It's
yeah,
PTSD going on. I was
yeah,
so grateful that I wasn't actually practicing at that time, because I was like, I don't think I could have done it. I mean, it's just, like you said, it's hard enough that, I mean, like when you're in med school, right then in med school, at least the first 2 years, nobody's life is really in your hands. But
right,
you're expected to learn these books, all the
mm-hmm.
details. You're supposed to be able to make decisions on the fly, and they're supposed to be the right ones. There's no, I mean, obviously engineers need to make good decisions because we're building
Yeah,
this building, and if I didn't put the right amount of steel in here, this whole thing's going to collapse on everybody's head.
yeah,
But generally, in most cases at jobs, you get to, I mean, if it doesn't work, it's just money. Well, it can get
yeah,
you fired, and that's bad, but it's not, okay, if I make this calculation wrong, or if I am operating on somebody and I cut this wrong thing, and now they're paralyzed or they bleed to death or whatever. So you have to be able to look at something, look at someone, take the information that they give you and make a pretty snap judgment about what you're going to do, what the right treatment is. And, you're trying to explain that to the family. The family generally is looking at you like you're a god because they're like, oh, you're going to help my person. Thank you. Thank you. And so, and that goes on all day. So it's not just one family. It's like 20 that are on you. So generally a lot of people in the health, they party hard. So when they go out,
rightfully
they party hard. Yeah, they party hard. And stupid things happen. You party hard. You wake up in the wrong place, like, how did this happen? Okay, you were drinking a bit much. I mean, we used to have parties as med students, and I mean, I know they weren't as rowdy as some parties that I knew about, but it was like, ooh, there's some people in here that I don't know if I really would want you to be a doctor right now because I see the really crazy side of you.
I'm like, is this really you, or is this like you under massive amounts of stress? And if this is you under massive amounts of stress, maybe you should reconsider.
Yeah, maybe you need to rest a little bit. No, everybody worked out fine, but it was just, it was just funny. It was funny. Those are fun times. So yeah, so it's so I'm gonna see how this works out. Maybe I'll make that into a mini series. Obviously not about the same couple, but maybe there'll be somebody in their arc. I mean, in their family somewhere or in their circle of friends that are, starting to date. And they're all going to be a little older since this is second chance. They're a little older. So,
that could be fun though. Like a series of, I don't even know what you would call it.
I'm saying, this series of older, romance with older people. I don't know. You have to think of a much sexier name than that. But but yeah, that's because these two characters are early 40s. They have known each other for a long time, but things didn't work out. So they're going to try. They're going to be. There's some nosy exes that are going to try to get them back together. So I said I'm looking forward to it. I think it could be fun. I hope I can do it justice because I think the idea could be fun. So
yeah,
wish me luck.
Listen, all the good vibes and the prayers and the luck and all of the things. Writing enough, just in general, is hard as is. Like, not. Some people would probably argue with me and be like, well, it's not really hard. It just takes time. Well, it's not that it's like hard as in like, I can't lift this 500-pound thing hard. Like I'm straining. Yeah. It's more of like one of those, the difference between physically exhausting and mentally exhausting and having to because I've talked to enough authors and dabbled enough myself to just know this, but like when you're writing it, you intrinsically know everything. So you know what the story is or is going to be, you know what they're thinking, you know what they're doing, and you have to find a way to communicate that in the right time and place. Right. And I've had plenty of authors come back and be like, oh yeah, somebody in my editing was like, how did they know this? Or how did they get here? And you're like, well, they went and did this, or they went through the park, and they're like, yeah, but you didn't communicate that. And it's like, I knew that. Yeah. I knew that because it's my story. Yeah. And then you're like having to go back through and do another rounds of edits and writing more. And that's what takes so long, is because you have to go back with this back and forth and make sure, okay, did I communicate this correctly? Does it come across clearly? Does it read easily? Is my grammar and my spelling correct? And then did I leave something in too early in the story and now it's blown, or did I leave it is it in there too late and now it doesn't make sense? Or
oh no, I mean, in Homecoming Chaos there are a couple of instances where I did some head hopping. So now I am really, really focused on that. And so is my editor. They're like, all right, one, why would they know that? Two, you're popping from story because you're just in there writing like I know what they're saying and they know, but you're just kind of just hopping from head to head and just like, I'm sorry. I'm trying to reel that in. I'm just, it's almost like I should be, sometimes I feel like I should be writing a script because I like writing conversations with a bunch of people in them. So, he says this, she says this, she says this, she says this, but you have to make sure that it's separated and that it's clear that it's different people saying it. And I wasn't always as clear as I could have been. So that's when I sent it out, I sent the new story off to my editor. I was like, make sure there's no head hopping here. Remind me. I went through, I double checked it myself, but I need somebody else, other people to look at it and say, there's no reason. Oh, who's saying this? I don't know. They're all, it's big
It's a
conversations.
lot.
Yeah, big conversations. Like a script, you can just write it out and write the little aside like he frowns or he shrugs or looks at her. I like that in a story. I like he says something and looks at her like this, but it can make it confusing. I don't know. So, and Homecoming Chaos is not a short book. Maybe I'm trying to be nice to everybody by writing novellas from now for the time being. I'm sorry, I wrote a really long story. These other ones are like 150 pages. How about that? So
Variety's nice.
yeah,
Variety's nice.
yeah. I in my work in progress is um, I have two more novellas and another novel. So, eh. And I keep moving them around because originally the next story was supposed to be the novel because it pertains to the cliffhanger. So the next story was going to be the novel. But I was having such a hard time. I just was not feeling motivated to write the novel. And then the timeline also got screwed up because, the novel happens at a certain time of year, and the relationship between Nick and Jamie is at a certain point. So I said, all right, I can't have 6 months between the time of the cliffhanger because it wouldn't make any sense. There needs to be some kind of motion, maybe not a resolution to the cliffhanger, but it needs to be addressed. And so I have to write something that fits in the time frame. So I ended up deciding to write a novella that fits in the time frame. And then the next story will be the novel, which completely addresses the cliffhanger. But the cliffhanger will be addressed. The entire cliffhanger situation will be completely dealt with in the novel, but it will be mentioned and discussed. And so that was kind of cool too, because she's the person who is causing the cliffhanger. Is kind of, if you look at my social media pages, every so often you'll see something called, you'll see me talking about villains, and she's in there. She's the villain. So, and I said I need to talk to a psychiatrist because I have, I want her to kind of, what I want her to be doing. I need to make sure that I would like to find out if there's actually a scientific name, name in psychology or psychiatry for what she's doing, because she is the villain. Jamie was the victim, and the villain won't go away. And it's kind of like, well, why won't she go away? Why is she still trying to talk to the person that she terrorized? So I'm trying to find out, is this Stockholm syndrome reverse? Is that a thing? Not a thing. Reverse Stockholm syndrome. So it's
Listen, everything is a thing. There is no telling, honestly.
Yeah. So I just wanted to double check, but I like the concept of that because given the villain's backstory, it actually kind of makes sense that it's crazy, but it makes sense that she would be a bit crazy that way. So I need four hands, two
Yeah.
heads. So, one person can be writing this, the other one can be writing this, and we can go back and compare notes.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be that. Okay, so interestingly enough, it would be like, would you think like a conjoined twin, or like would you want a whole separate copy of yourself? Now that we're on this subject, I'm just going to ask.
I would like a separate copy of myself because sometimes I might have to send the other copy of myself to do something else that I don't. They might have to go pick up a child or go to the grocery
Laundry or
store.
dishes or
Yeah,
cooking.
I don't want to get dragged into that. Go do the other stuff. You can come back and write later. I need you to do some other things, and I can stay and write. So,
So on the subject of on maybe doing your mystery later on down the road, are you thinking about doing everything under the same pen name, or are you wanting to, maybe if you decided to branch off, would you want to do it under a different name?
I mean, the pen name I have now, D.W. Brooks, is the pen name
Mm-hmm.
that well, obviously it wouldn't have been D.W. Brooks because I wasn't married at first, but I would have used my initials then too
Mm-hmm.
as a kid. Um, but I feel like if I wrote mysteries that I would need to find I would need to use a different name. Maybe not, maybe
Yeah.
I'd actually use my whole name or something like that because it would be, writing different types of romance under the same name is one thing, but writing, the world is ending mystery or suspense, yeah, I can't really do it under the same pen name. Then people would be confused, like, well, I don't
What do you
understand.
write?
Yeah, she was writing all these lovey-dovey stories. What's going on here? Now she's blowing up the
Okay.
world. I don't understand. So,
Are you okay? Send a
yeah,
distress signal.
yeah, blink a couple times if you're under stress. Yeah, so I feel like I would have to have another name. So,
Yeah. So in the sake of moving on to the next subject,
I told you I'm
do you?
talkative.
Me too. It's okay. um, I talked a little bit about this earlier, but your social medias and in the sake of marketing, like which platforms do you prefer? Do you feel like you intrinsically like one better because you're better at it, or is it just like everything is?
I don't like any of them because they all are horrible. Now, I probably spend a lot of time on Instagram.
Mhm.
I stick my toe in and out of TikTok because I don't get it. I just don't. I don't get TikTok. And because I use Instagram, most of my stuff ends up published on Facebook. Um,
Mhm.
and I also try to publish most things on Threads. I've
Yeah.
left I've left Twitter X alone for the most part, and I keep saying that I'm going to post some of my things on YouTube. I just haven't done it. I also will. I try to have my things posted from Instagram directly to Pinterest,
Mhm.
but I was putting covers on some of my posts on Instagram, and they take the cover too. So then you have this whole list of covers, and then you have the post, and it's like that's not what I intended. That's not the aesthetic that I was looking for. So I will have to do it by hand myself,
Yeah.
and Instagram vexes me because it just you know, I know what they're doing. I know they want to
Mhm.
force you into paying to boost your posts. I know that is the plan,
Mhm.
to try to make, because, there's sometimes you make a graphic or a little video, and you know that if people outside of your circle saw it, it would get some traction because you knew it was good. You're like, okay, I don't love everything I put up. Some things it's just like, I was
Mhm.
tired and I just put that up. It's entertaining enough, and my friends will like it because they're my friends. But
Yeah.
there's sometimes you put up something, you're like, oh, the music was right, the images you used were right, the timing was perfect. And like this would get some, actual likes from people outside of my
Yeah.
circle if I could get it out there, but they won't show it. And I've been told that, if you start trying to boost, they'll throttle back on you more to force you to boost more. And it's just like, fine, whatever. I refuse to boost. I refuse right now.
Me
So
too.
but that's kind of my thing. I don't get it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand why it's so. I mean, it used to be much easier. I'm not even trying to go
Mm-hmm.
viral, but could I have you show it to more than 100 people? Just or
Honestly.
sometimes 30. You only showed it to 30 people. I have more than 30 people on my friends list. Why? At least show it
Yep.
to all of my friends. So
That's yeah. That is something that irritates me is like if I'm scrolling through what is now Instagram Reels, because they wanted to take a piece of whatever TikTok was doing, but
yeah,
um, it's like I know, and my following is large on my Bookstagram page. My
yeah,
following is not large on the podcast page.
hmm,
That's okay.
yeah,
I'll use my Bookstagram page to boost the
yeah,
podcast. That's fine too.
right,
But when I was posting them, if I wasn't tagging like specific engagement groups, I
mhm,
wasn't getting over a couple hundred views. And I'm like, I have over 3,000 followers.
yeah,
At least put it in my followers' feed so
yeah,
that they can see. Because then if they decide they want to share,
yeah,
their followers can see it. And like, that's the idea,
right. Well, that's
how
why
it should have been done.
yeah, that's why you have friends. I mean, if they're not going to show I mean, your friends have liked you because they like to see your content. So
Yep.
why won't you show it to them? I mean, I don't understand. And what's the point of having friends if you're not going to show them anything? Just
Right.
it makes no sense. So
I remember whenever Instagram first came through, and when you scrolled all the way down,
mhm,
you hit a certain spot that it was like no more like new content from
mhm,
your friends, and
yeah,
you could scroll down and it's from people you didn't follow. And
right,
it's like, well, okay, then they came up with the explore page, and it's like, okay, well, this is where we're going to put all of the popular stuff for people who you don't follow. So if you wanted to and it was like once you hit the bottom of that list, you just went back into stuff that was before the last time you got on.
right,
So then it's like your feed is legitimately your entire friends, and if you wanted to see new stuff, you went over to the explore page, and now they just put whatever they want wherever.
yeah.
And I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah, yeah, I'd like my friends to see my stuff. I don't understand
Mm-hmm.
why. I mean, and people say, well, you shouldn't use engagement pods or what have you. But honestly, if you
It's the
don't,
only way to get my stuff seen.
yeah, yeah, if you don't, nobody will see your stuff. Because I've tried to just put a post up
Mm-hmm.
just to see what happens, and because have you, do you have um, the trial feature? I feel like I'm on
No.
the cutting edge. On Reels, they still aren't giving me any benefits for being there. But there's a thing called trial. I don't even know
Mm-hmm.
anybody else who has it. Maybe they're just kicking me around. I don't know. But when I post a reel, there's a little tab that says trial. And basically what they'll do, if you click that, they'll take your reel and show it to people you don't know or up front. And if it gets some traction, then they'll start showing it wider. I remember them mentioning this. Somehow I
Mm-hmm.
ended up on the trial list, but I tried it once
Mm-hmm.
and it was frustrating because because their actual purpose to that was supposedly to show your content to people you don't know. They literally
Yeah.
showed it to 17 people. I mean, and then they came to me and said, "Oh, we don't, you didn't get any newer engagement than you usually would. You can show it to everybody now." And it's like, first, you said you would do this for 72 hours, but two, you showed it over 5 hours to 17 people. How was I going to get any more engagement if only 17 people saw it?
Yeah,
This
honestly.
makes, yeah, this makes no sense. I mean, if it was at the bottom, I mean, if you had, we showed it to 1,000 people and nobody liked it, that's one thing. But you showed it to
That's different.
17. Yeah, you showed it to 17 people. That's good odds that 17 people may not like it. But if it's only 17, we have no idea of whether.
Hmm.
I mean, so I've been afraid to use it again because I was just like, that was a waste. So,
So like just over the past few months, I went in and changed my feed to something more aesthetic.
mhm,
And I started using less engagement pods. And like just since changing that, we went from like when I before I changed my stuff, it was just like whatever randomly I wanted to post, and I used like 5 or 6 massive
mhm,
engagement pods that had like 200 or 300 people in them a piece, and
mhm,
I would get well over 1,000 likes.
mhm,
And I would notice that my followers were actually seeing outside of the people who were part of those engagement pods.
mhm.
Since I changed it to something more aesthetically pleasing that was supposed to help me,
Yeah.
and I used 3 smaller engagement groups, I only get 80 likes,
Mhm.
which is not even the full amount of one group. Not even the full amount of one group. Each of these groups have like 100 people in them.
Yeah.
And when I don't use the groups, I get maybe 15 likes after a week.
Yeah.
After a week. So I'm like, you're not even showing it to all of the people who are following me. It's
Yeah.
very obvious. And it's like, I understand. And part of that may be just because I'm not posting frequently enough for them, because I don't post more. On average, I don't post more than twice a week.
Mhm.
And even you're lucky if I even do that. Like, I have posts scheduled out through October 10th. And that's right now, that's just because I have some arcs that need to be
Mhm.
reviewed and that have to go up on my page by the 10th.
Right.
But before I posted I
Uh-oh.
posted 6 days ago, right? A week ago?
Mhm.
Before that it was July 30th.
Ooh. Yeah, I post generally one, maybe 2 times a day. I would post more, but I just get so annoyed. I feel like I'm using up good content for nobody to see. So I
Yeah.
feel like I might as well use I mean, like I said,
Well,
I don't know.
part of the reason my content's not there is because my page is an amalgamation of things that I've read, I'm going to be reading, and books that I own. And
Mhm.
it's literally background picture. The background is my library. So some version of that book in front of my shelves, or the stack of books in front of my shelves. So between the beginning of July and the end of July, for that entire month and some of the first part of August, I wasn't reading. Like, I just it the my flustered right now is because all of the same stuff was on Instagram.
Mhm.
And none of those books sounded even slightly appealing to me. Threads had just taken off, and again, it was all of the same stuff. And it was like, I'm not seeing any new books, and I know new books are coming out, and I don't have the money to go to the bookstore and shop in that manner. And
Mhm.
it was like, and Amazon is not pushing anything new to me. So
Mhm.
it's like, I know there are probably hundreds of authors who have published in July and the first week of August, and I've seen nothing. On top of all of that, my home life was a little stressful, and my job had just picked up because our busy season is according to football season. So I was just like, yeah. It was like, and nothing in here really had my attention. And I probably own well over 400 books. Like,
That's
it
great.
is nothing for me to have a nearly a mini library in here. And
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't have like, it sounds interesting. Like, some of the stuff in here sounded interesting. I just didn't feel like I had the mental capacity to go and do it. And now I'm being punished
Yeah.
because I didn't want to post, once a day or once every other day or even once a week. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you could
Yeah.
still at least show my stuff to my friends.
Yeah. No, like I said, I just don't, I don't understand. the rationale. I mean, it's even on Facebook. I mean, you know, I have a bunch of friends, and it's so
Mm-hmm.
random. Like if I post something about my daughter or son, like okay, a kid graduated or it's a birthday, I suddenly get 300 likes. That means they showed it to somebody. But then I post something about my book, and I get nothing. They don't show it to anyone. It's like, come on, come on. I know that. I mean, if you can show my kid's birthday, you obviously know that
Yeah.
you can show my content somewhere. But
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, oh, you published a book. I will show it to 10 people. So it's hard to be super excited about posting on social media. I mean, it seems like a
Yeah.
great idea. Like, wow, I can reach people all around the world. And social media is like, no, you can't because we're not going to let you.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not going to let you do that. So
Well, and
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I was talking to someone else about TikTok because they were talking about how they couldn't get out of the 200 to 300 view range. And I was like, well, okay. I was like, yeah, that's frustrating. And I get it. I am one of the people who get it the most because I have so many people on Instagram that followed me and they come over to TikTok and I follow them and we engage and then they don't follow me back. And I'm like, it's the same content. It's literally some of the same content. And I'm getting 200 views, but I'm getting a couple thousand on Instagram. And again, this was before I changed my page. I don't do reels anymore. I just refuse. Um, but on TikTok, I told somebody, I was like, all right, as an author, TikTok can be great. And for many reasons, but the way to think about this is you're getting 200 or 300 views per video. All right. That doesn't seem like a lot when you're looking at how people go viral. But if you're standing in a room with 200 to 300 people in front of you, you're going to probably be overwhelmed because that's a lot of people. Okay. So then you have to take into consideration what day, what time, who's online and who's not online. And if you're posting various times and days, it's very likely you're not reaching the same 200 to 300 people. So you're still getting the views, it doesn't always look like that on that one. And it is a lot of effort and a lot of work to put in to not feel like you're getting a whole lot of return. But at the same time, you're likely to have people who share it or be like, oh, I saw this video of that because I am one to be like, I saw this video the other day and it was of this book and I can describe the cover to you and I can't remember the name of it, but I'm sure that if we look it up somewhere, I could probably find it. And then I'm just like, all right, it had flowers on the front and it had this person who was dipping this woman.
I last night I was looking at TikTok because I've decided to be I've decided to go through and they give you the people you should follow. I
Mm-hmm.
follow them because they're all book talkers or authors. I follow them. I send them a hello, and
Hey.
I carry on I try to carry on a conversation. I go to their page, like some of their stuff. I've
Mm-hmm.
just started doing this recently, so I was trying to do some of that last night, and then I came across this post where this woman was saying, "Okay, you put up this great video on TikTok and nobody's giving you want to know how to get your video lifted and she said you have to show TikTok that you are how did she put it? Like a good TikToker? I don't know. But her
Mm-hmm.
rationale was to go from the bottom to the top of the activities on the videos that you're looking at to show TikTok that you're, I guess, willing to play by their rules. You save it first, then you repost it, you make some kind of comment, interact with the people
In
on
the
the
comment.
video, and then
Yeah.
like it. It means that you've been on there long enough for it to play all the way through, and that you're playing their thing. And this was her philosophy, and I was like, I don't know. Maybe I'll try adding some of that into here. See if that helps. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was kind of excited because uh like I've had a couple people on TikTok, like one book talker, I don't even know how she found my book. And so she was so funny. She read it and her main post was, why is no one talking about this book? I don't understand. She's like, this is a good book. Why is no one talking about it? And she kept, she would comment that under my thing, like, this is a great book. Why is no one talking about it? So, but she's obviously talking about lots of books, so she can't spend all her time posting mine. And then I saw, ARCs actually gave me some PTSD as well, because, you're worried about it. You want people to review your book. You're hoping that they like it. They tag you in it, so you're like, that must mean they liked it, I guess, or have you. So, no one tagged me in something that they didn't like, and now I recognize that those people were not the people for my story. That's fine. But I looked on TikTok, and there was like, you were mentioned in a post. Most of the time, those are people who are doing giveaways or something, and they're just putting random names in the thing. And I was like, well, who's mentioning my name? And there was somebody who had bought my book, and she was like, hey, it's doing. And then she said, and I'm not going to read this one yet because I'm going to read the first two first. But and I was like, and I saw that she had like 70 likes, and it had been shared like 10 times. I was like, see, this is what you want to see occasionally, everyone. But so I said, well, I guess I can't give up completely on TikTok. I'm crying. Somebody noticed that I actually had a book out. Okay, I guess I will keep trying. But so but art, because I was afraid at first there was somebody with I didn't really like this book. It's like, oh no, I don't want to see that. That's scary. I've avoided that. I've not had, the less than stellar reviews of people just like, I didn't get it or I didn't enjoy it. They didn't tag me. And so I'm managing not to look at Goodreads anymore. I generally just kind of get an idea on when you look on Amazon or KDP, kind of where your stars are or how many reviews you have. Like, okay, nobody's given me a 1 yet. All right. Because that would drag my average way down. You kind of like, I know how math works. So I figure pretty much everybody who's going to post from the arts are probably pretty much done now. So that's at least one stressor over with. I'm not sure I'm going to do art again. I'm not, this is my first time. I'm not sure. I don't know. It didn't suddenly boost my sales any more than they were when I didn't do art. So I can't say
that. It's a love-hate relationship for a lot of authors.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure I want to again. But it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. I haven't posted on Instagram today yet either. I know what I'm going to post, but I just haven't put it up. So, I'm going to start recycling stuff. I haven't really, changing the music or putting a couple things together and making a new reel or a new carousel. So I find live events probably are more fun than posting on Instagram, but live events are harder to come by. They're harder to come by. So I need to try to get a book signing set up with all three at Barnes and Noble or some indie bookstore in the area. So that's on the list of things to do.
That would be fun.
Yeah, I did a book. It was a book festival at the end of June, and that was the most fun one of the most exciting. You're sitting at your table, the way they set it up, because they had Nikki Giovanni was there. So they had some other famous or semi-famous authors and a bunch of indie authors, but she was like the main draw. She gave a talk and on and on. So the way they set it up, people came to buy her books and the rest of us were at tables or booths and people could stop at your booth. And I ended up because we were a little late, and I ended up at a table that was down from where she was sitting. So everybody who was going to get their book autographed from her actually passed by my table. So and that's actually what the the organizers said. They said, this looks like a strange place to sit because it was like down a hallway. It's just like, it looks like a strange place to sit. But honestly, everybody has to pass you. They line up they all have to pass you. You have your books, you have your signs, you're sitting there, they're standing there. They're looking over like, that looks interesting. And they start talking to you. You can sell your book, and they're obviously there to buy books because they came to buy her books. They're feeling like buying, and they're like, that looks interesting. And so you sign it, and they buy your books. I mean, I sold 22 books sitting there. So, yeah. I was like, okay, now this is what I need to be spending more time doing. I need to do this more often because I can post a lot of stuff on Instagram and sell nothing. And I mean, like I said, they're there to buy. So, unless your covers and you look disheveled and your covers were a mess, there's going to be somebody who'd be interested in giving you a shot because they're there to buy. They're there to buy books. So
it's just a little bit of different exposure.
Yeah. So it was. So I have to set some more of those up. Yeah. All right.
That's all I've got today.
It was fun.
It was fun. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and I'll make sure to get all your information into the show notes and leave some links and stuff so that all of my peeps can find you.